Hey everybody, I'm Victoria Valdez from Trice Energy Counseling. I'm the owner of Trice Energy Counseling, and I am also a licensed marriage and family therapist. And I'm super excited today to be interviewing Ben Roberts because, in honor of Black History Month, I really wanted to focus on spotlighting Black therapists in our community and being able to connect community members to our awesome Black therapists. So I've got Ben Roberts here today, who is a licensed professional counselor and the owner of Purpose to Life. So I'm super excited to have you and learn all about your practice and all about you. So Ben, go ahead and tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm Ben Roberts, licensed professional counselor. I've been in mental health for about the past 10 years or so. Actually, I've been licensed for maybe the past 5 or 6 years. I'm the actually owner of Purpose Life. So I work, in some ways have turned into a family business, but my father does a lot of marriage and family therapy. He's an LMFT. And then my wife does a lot of consulting as well. So she provides emotional intelligence assessments and trainings and things like that. And so kind of Captain Planet with our powers combined, we're Purpose Life. But yeah, that's kind of a little bit about me and practice.
I love that so much. I also like the Captain Planet reference. That was my jam when I was a kid. I'm probably also aging myself. So
That's probably what I did too. But yeah, I use the Captain Planet reference a lot with the powers combined, you know.
I love it. I love it. I had a warm, fuzzy kid moment there. I also think it's super cool. Like, when you talked about the family business, I love that. You've got your wife, your dad, super, super cool. So if you could tell us a little bit more, you mentioned that there's some consulting pieces. You mentioned your dad's an LMFT and there's some couples work. And then I'd like to hear about what your swing on your niche is on therapy. Tell us a little bit deeper about what your practice offers. And I loved hearing about the whole wellness package type of deal. It's like everything, right? So tell us a little bit more, what about the consulting? What about what your dad does and you?
Yeah. Really good question. So we have very distinct things that we do. I think me and my dad are kind of more so along the lines of clinical type of work. When it comes to my wife and the consulting, a lot of her work is in just emotional intelligence. So she is able to do, I believe, it's an actual emotional intelligence assessment that she does for individuals, for groups, for leaders, things like that. So she's worked with a lot of corporations. Her background is in nonprofit. So when it comes to leadership development, she does really good at that type of work. As far as my dad's been in probably mental health, probably around like 30 years. So
Wow.
he's and probably one of the few black LMFTs in this black male LMFTs in the state. It's not a whole lot of them. It's not a whole lot of LMFTs, in general,
True.
especially LMFTs of color. So,
True.
so he has so much experience in working with couples and working with individuals as well, but that's kind of his wheelhouse. And so regardless of how people come in, then we are able to sort them to what they're needing. If they need leadership development, then Erica kind of takes that. If it's more couples, I can work with couples as well, but I kind of send them to them. I have a mix and mingle of the people that I work with, but I really have a strong love for working with vets. I work with a lot of men as well, and people of faith. That's kind of my wheelhouse of things that I see. A lot of the people that work with me are wanting to include faith in their therapy in some type of way. The veteran piece comes from just experience with working with the military. So for about 4 years or so, I worked with military. Either it was in a school setting or embedded with a brigade at one point. So I get the working with group trauma and things like that is unique for the veteran population. But really working with men in general, that's the majority of people that I get are men that's either dealing with anxiety, some type of trauma, or even really men that's wanting to focus in on their faith, like wanting to bring their faith into the therapeutic process. And I love that space. I love working with the church, and specifically the Black church. Like that has just been it's just like the gift that keeps giving with that type of work. So that's kind of a setup of all that we do in this package.
I love it. I
That we
love it.
have. Mm-hmm.
I was glad that you explained the consulting because there's so much things under the umbrella of consulting. It's like,
Yep.
what consulting do we do? Right. Like, so that
Yep.
was really awesome to learn about that. I loved, and wow, I feel like your dad's like a legend, like I'm sure the way that I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. Cause I mean, going, like you said, there's not a lot of LMFTs, not a lot of LMFTs of color. And then he probably was one of the original Black LMFTs for the state of Tennessee.
I don't know. If there's a list of them, I don't know. I would like to look at it.
Yeah, me too.
The OG LMFTs.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm number 1944. And so when we see the numbers, they've always told us that was my position. I was number 1,944. So
okay. Yeah, so he's like 300 or something like that.
Okay, isn't that wow?
Yeah.
That's amazing. And then I loved really hearing about
that just makes him old. Is that? Oh, yeah.
I hope he watches this.
Yeah, I don't know. Probably not.
Tell him I'm gonna find his email and send
it.
No, I also loved hearing about the work that you do. Is there a backstory of your connection to working with veterans? Is there a family member who is a veteran? Or are you a veteran? If it's all right for me to ask.
Yeah, no, I'm not a veteran. It's really come from my experience working. So I was an MFLAC for a while. So military and family life counselor. For about 4 years or so. So I was going back and forth to Clarksville and working up there. So the experience has got me into working with a lot of the vets.
Awesome.
Yeah. More so the experience with working with the church has really got me into, working with churches now. So I grew up in the church. And the church that I grew up in was a very big part of my life and my development. And then when I ended up going to school, I actually went to first I went to University of Memphis for undergrad, but my grad work was at the time Harding School of Theology. So there was a spiritual emphasis on everything we were doing in our counseling work. So that's all played a part in how I'm able to connect the faith-based approach as well as a lot of therapeutic things as well. So that's really valuable. But the military in general just came from just experience, just getting involved and working with the MFLAG program.
I love hearing both of those backstories, and it's so neat. I love that you're able to be that male representation for our veterans and for every Black male. Like as I do these interviews and other people of color, like how important it is for us to have representation. So I love that. And I also love hearing your backstory about church. I think it's at least my own like perception, no like stats or anything, but like I feel like from like 20 or 30 years ago till now, like I feel like churches are starting to be more inclusive of or side by side with mental health versus like how do I say this correctly? I'm probably going to butcher this. I think you know where I'm going with this.
Sure.
That like just pray it out, and if you're going to the therapist is because you ain't praying hard enough,
Sure. Uh-huh.
And more inclusive of like, hey, I felt led by God to become a therapist.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, hey, if God called me to do, then there must be godly work.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, there's not as much competing now. Like there's value in each approach, right?
Yes.
And it takes someone to know when the other person can be useful, right? There's some things that, hey, your minister can be useful at this moment, right? You need some spiritual guidance in that, and that might be where your minister comes in. And hopefully the opposite way. Like I have ministers that reach out like, hey, this person's going to need this type of assistance. They know where it's past their threshold. So I think people are now working together more as opposed to like fighting as if it's two polar opposites,
Yes, it was Living Water Church. I think they're in Nashville. They did a mental health wellness. I forgot they had a really awesome like name about the name title was really creative, like mental wholeness. And it was beautiful. We went out to the park and they had mental health providers and all sorts of, and it was just this beautiful connection of spirituality and mental health. And so I was like, yes, this is so good, you know? So I love hearing about that. I was like, oh man, I got so excited about this. I was like, I might forget about these other questions.
Yeah. No, you're fine.
I loved hearing about your therapy practice. And so here, what's your backstory about wanting to be a therapist? What led you to decide I'm going to be a therapist?
Sure. Yeah, it's nothing amazing. It's exposure. That's what I tell people. So, dad was doing it, and so I've been exposed to it. That's the initial route. And I think especially for, therapists, usually there's some type of journey that people get to that point. I've been knowing I wanted to do this since middle school. So it was, now my idea of what therapy has changed drastically of what I thought I would be doing and what I'm actually doing. But just exposure to it. I had a clear direction of what I wanted to do. My initial goal was to really just work with several churches is what I wanted to do. And I kind of steered from that. And I still had that in the back of my head, but that was my initial goal, was like, all right, I want to work with several churches and being a resource for them, specifically for the Black church, because I know how important it was to be connected in with the Black church and how much it was for me. And I thought that would be a resource for a lot of churches. And I think some of that is coming out now, some of the work I'm starting to do. But initially I wanted to really kind of emulate a lot of things that I saw my dad doing. I thought he was just going and talking. And so I realized it's so much more. I was like, oh, he's just sitting and talking. Like, oh my gosh, I make money doing that. Then I realized, all right, it's so much more to it than that. And then being a business owner, like, this is definitely a spiritual journey. And I'm sure you can, stay to that, because like once you're doing things for yourself and you don't have that covering, it becomes very much a spiritual journey.
Yes.
And yeah, very much.
Hold on tight.
Absolutely.
And lean on that faith. Yes. I relate to that.
Absolutely. And so this is one unique profession where the healthier you become, the better you are at your job. And so, when you take risks and you start to learn more about yourself and you begin to do the work for yourself, you're actually better at your job by being a healthier person. And so this is one of the unique, professions that we get to be a part of, where the healthier we are, the better we are, so.
Yeah, no, I love that. The thought that popped into my head while you were talking is that I specialize working with kids and teens and like the parents. So part of my treatment is, when the parents bring their kiddos to me, I'm like, oh, but I'm going to see you too, because we all have to change in the system. And I always tell parents, one of the best gifts that you can give yourself and to your family is working on yourself. And so I encourage them, right, that change so that your relationships are better. You're feeling better about yourself. So you're going to treat your kids better. You're going to treat your spouse better. You're going to speak, you're going to feel better and do better. Right. So I love that. There was something else you said that I was going to ask you about, and it slipped my mind.
Sorry. Not
I'll have to come back around there. So tell me so you actually kind of touched on this already, but I'm going to go a little bit deeper. When you're helping someone, you talked about the veterans, the spirituality, but can you give us a little peek of like what it's like to have therapy with you? What can someone kind of expect? Like a little sneak peek.
Sure. Yeah. And that's kind of a difficult thing. I don't know, outside of the therapists, that I've talked to, I don't know like how it would be any different from anyone else. I think mine is just, for me, when I'm talking to like clients and things, I think it's just like a personality thing. That's the biggest difference. My intakes, when I bring someone on, I like to be as thorough as possible on the intakes. But I'm typically a very flexible person. When people are talking to me or when I'm doing things, I'm pretty flexible. So I have to be intentional about getting like very detailed things in the beginning. One thing that's important for our organization is being what we say like culturally relevant. And so part of that is like asking questions that are unique to that individual to make sure that we're incorporating things that's important to whoever that client is. So one of those things might be faith, right? And one thing I always ask is what role does spirituality play for you personally? And what role is spirituality going to play in what we do? And so that helps open the door of if spirituality is a part of how they make decisions. And that's all I'm looking for. Is like, is that a part of how you make decisions? Because if it is, I need to check in on it because
Yeah, I love
that
that.
represents a part of you.
Hmm.
And so if yeah, so questions like that is just helpful to be able to really key in on those clients. Something's beeping here. I don't know if you hear it.
No, I don't.
Okay, well, good. Uh, I know
You're
what it
okay?
is.
Do you
It's
need, I
fine.
was
Yeah,
like, do you
it's
need to
fine.
check on it? I'm always like, is there a fire alarm?
No, so
It's like,
this is the interesting thing. I
you're,
don't know if we got time for this, but I was doing a like a podcast or interview or something with one of my friends, and alarm went off, and it was a fire.
oh no.
So I think we might have been doing it live, and we were talking, and then I hear a beeping in the background, and then all you see is me just like get up and leave, and so it's just nothing there, and I'm literally having to like put out a grease fire like during the whole
Oh
time, and then I had to come back and I was like, hey man, I gotta go. So I think we're good. It's just something that's just messing up in the
no. Okay,
hallway.
that's good though, because I was like, is there something you need to attend to? Because if you do,
Nah,
totally okay. Um, oh gosh, well, I'm glad that it sounds like nothing detrimental happened with that other one.
no.
Um, I was gonna say that I love that you talked about like you may do things differently or may not be any different than any therapist, and I love that you highlighted on you're heavy on the kind of like assessment phase and kind of like going into a deep thorough is what I understood. Did I get that right, of like
Mhm.
kind of gathering that information? I love that. I find I share in you that I find myself that I find that I stand out in that as well in our model at Trice Energy, because we do 90-minute intakes and we do a thorough
Yeah.
biopsychosocial, and we do 4 levels of assessment. And I find that going in that really big deep dive with people for us just really works. It feels good. So I love kind of hearing that someone else shares in that, because I've heard other people just do their maybe, and not that it's wrong or right, but like a 45-minute intake and then boom, next session we're ready to rock and roll. And so it's nice to hear like some shared experience there of like doing
Yeah.
it a little different. And I
Well,
also love the faith-based question, if I may. When I was in my program learning that I took a spirituality track, which was phenomenal. And that is one of the reasons why I have that question with my kiddos and teens and
mhm.
our intakes of asking about faith and their religion, and spirituality, and if that's going to be a play and how they want it to be a play or part of their journey here in therapy. So I love that. I share that with you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And we do 90 minutes as well for the intake, and some of that came from working in like community mental health. Right. One time I was getting 30 minutes for an intake. I'm like, what am I supposed to gather in this 30 minutes?
We
Something
just
like
went over
that.
confidentiality, right?
They just learned my name. Uh,
Yes. After
so yeah, no, I
it
get that
seems
though.
it's shocking to me a little bit, but like I said, I'm not saying it's wrong or right necessarily, or our way is better, but it just feels like we can get a clearer map or idea when we have more time with them.
Mm,
So yeah. So for my other question here is, what about okay, so for therapy, my goal is for therapists to also watch this video. So this is why I have this question when I do these interviews, is for therapists who are not Black and are working with Black populations, and whether they're passionate about it or they just come through their office and they're working with Black population. What are some tips or strategies or cultural considerations, or anything to be or mindful of when we're providing services to the Black population?
Sure. I think the biggest thing would just be authentic, and however you come across, just be authentic. If you don't, I mean, because a large part of even the people I work with, I don't work with just Black people. So I mean, majority are men, but it's all backgrounds, all faiths, all from as close to spiritual as you think you can get to they're atheists. Like I mean, but the thing that is important is for me to be authentic, in whoever I'm working with. And if you're working with someone that's different than you, then just be authentic. I think that's the thing. Is to keep in mind, like tips and tricks that people will snuff that out. It's like, yeah, you're not being true to yourself. And especially if you work with kids. Oh my goodness.
Oh
Kids.
yes, they snuff you out in like 30 seconds flat or 10
goodness.
seconds.
And then make you feel bad. And now I mean, especially with kids, man, they'll definitely, but be authentic. Just be authentic. And it's okay if you're not the right therapist.
Yes, I love that you said that.
Yeah, it is. As long as be authentic, if you're not the right therapist, that's okay. And you can guide them, at least, and you've helped them come to realize that this is something they're not looking for. You've been helpful. But be authentic with people.
I love that. I think now you can tell me if I'm went in the wrong direction here, but when I was hearing you talk about being authentic, I was talking to my supervisee, my master level intern from Lipscomb, and also another interview I did. We were talking about this idea of men. I won't speak for all BIPOC, obviously, and I can't speak for all Latinas or Latinos, right? Even though I am Mexican American, but there's something about, I think all humanity likes this, but there's something about when you talked about being authentic is like, I find the Latino population, at least, they want to know something about you. And I feel like with our westernized culture and the way that we've been trained from a westernized mentality, where I was taught, don't say one thing personable about you. Don't say one thing. And I find the populations I work with, BIPOC and especially Latinos, is like, no, they want to know something, And so I feel like part of my authenticity is sharing a part of myself that I feel comfortable sharing. And it's very disarming, so when you were talking, it helps them feel more relaxed. Like, okay, you're not just some professional that's, where I have to feel nervous because you're not down on my level, but leveling that out with them. I find that that's really helpful. And so that's what I was hearing while you were talking.
Sure. Yeah. And I've done that with vets. I've learned that I have to share a little bit of myself with vets on the front end, all right, because they're very much, might be really on the edge when they come in. So I need to share some things with them on the front end, at least what I've seen with them.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. And so we've got two more questions. So I've been enjoying this. So from anyone that comes from a family background or a culture or an upbringing that just isn't as therapy friendly, or for lack of a better word, or just maybe they're skeptical. I think I need to say skeptical. It's skeptical of therapy. What's something that you could say to them to encourage them to give it a try?
Yeah, I think and one thing I do say is that, especially for people of color, we should be skeptical. We should have a healthy level of suspicion with this. 100%. We should. And one thing I tell clients, and not necessarily clients, because I don't say as many clients, but if I'm speaking to a group of people, especially with church folk, like I would tell them, like, challenge every single thing I say. Like, if it doesn't make sense, like, go and look it up and ask questions. But we should have a level of suspicion with what is going on. But at the same time, like a healthy level of suspicion, you can still become curious about it and see what it is. And so opening the door for people, a lot of times I will just say, this is not a marriage. We are not getting married. If you don't want to come back, you don't have to come back. You can come in and sit and see what happens. And usually in that first session, it's so rewarding, right? Because we got the time and we're just asking some questions to try to get a better understanding, and it doesn't seem what they were expecting, which I don't know what they were expecting, and they don't know what they were expecting either. Whatever it was, this ain't it. And so whoever they thought I was going to be, I'm not that person, and it starts to open that door. But I'm not against having some suspicion about mental health. You should.
Yeah.
I'm still suspicious about some stuff. I have to challenge him. What is this?
No,
what is this?
I feel you.
Yeah. So the healthy suspicion, I think is healthy for us. The health care system has not been honest all of the time, and still not in some instances. So we do need to have that healthy level of suspicion and try to figure out, like, all right, what is this? Is this something that can be helpful? And can I test it out? Because we are having to heal. We're going to have to do some of that stuff. And so we're going to have to get outside of our comfort zone and do some things that's different than what our parents did and what their parents did, because we have more access. We have access to different things now. So we might need to test some things out. Got to test some things out. Don't mean you have to commit 100%, but you can at least give it a try.
Yeah. I love that. There were some key things that made me have some like remembrance of when you were talking about the healthy skepticism and just like how the health community has been. I try not to get off on this when I talk to people, but like when I talk to other people that are, not part of the BIPOC community, I talk about how, yes, like specifically Black and Brown people, and I know Native American, what the healthcare system did in the United States to us, with I can't think of the right word, but where they took, they were, what's the word? Oh my gosh. Not allowing them to be able to have children anymore without their permission. I can't think of the word for whatever reason, but are we frozen?
No.
I thought we were frozen for a second. I can't think of the right word, but how, just the mistreatment of and the medical gaslighting and the, I was watching a documentary recently about how I think it was like 5,000 Native American women in the United States were taken, their reproductive parts were taken out against their will, without ever knowing. They did that to the Black community. They did that to the Latino community. And so I'm always like, yes, we're kind of skeptical, right? Like about, and so I loved you touching on, I felt like what I heard you say was like, it's okay to have a healthy amount of skepticism, and it's okay to be out of our comfort zone and see and give it a try. And it's totally okay if you're not a right fit. I tell people that all the time. I loved, Ben, that you brought that up, that, hey, at the end of this, if you find that we're not a good fit, that's okay. Let me help you find someone that feels better for you, right? Like at the end of the day, there's a bunch of us out there, so I love that you hit on that. That was really powerful. And I think you're the first person I've interviewed in the last 2 or 3 years with this specific type of interviewing that was like, hey, it's okay to be skeptical. So I really appreciated that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people appreciate that too, because the skepticism doesn't come from nowhere. Right? I mean, you got a right to be skeptical.
Right. There's a validation in that. And so I loved that. And so the other last question, which is, what does it mean for you to be Black?
Yeah, that's charged. We could talk all day about what it means. I think, the first thing that comes to my mind about being Black is being connected with a resilient group of people. That's just the first thing that comes in. I have a community of people that are resilient and have gotten through, some of the things that I have no idea how you would get through those things. So to be connected to a resilient group of people, or having a resilient community.
I love that. Very beautifully resilient. I love it. Well, Ben, do you have any final remarks or anything you want to say that you felt like you wanted to share before, as we're coming to an end here?
No, I appreciate you putting this on and doing this, and like kind of shining a light. I really appreciate you doing this. This has been fun.
Awesome. Well, I enjoyed. I hope to have a part two with you, just to like get to know you more. So I loved it, and look for future collaborations and just getting to know you and your practice better. So thank you so much for giving me your time, Ben. And so I really enjoyed it. So thank you. So I will see you later.
All righty. Thank you.